The quiet little coffee shop had seen thousands of customers over the years, but no one would ever forget what happened on that bright spring morning. It began with an awkward silence, a declined payment, and a stranger who simply refused to let another human being feel embarrassed. No one inside that cafe realized they were witnessing the beginning of a story that would change two broken lives forever. Sometimes destiny does not arrive wearing expensive clothes or driving luxury cars. Sometimes it arrives carrying a little girl's backpack, looking exhausted after a night without enough sleep, holding only enough money to survive another week. Before we begin this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who still believes kindness can change lives, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts if you believe in kindness, compassion, and the power of second chances. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories like this to you every day. The morning sun painted golden patterns across the sidewalk as 34-year-old Rowan Mercer hurried through downtown with his 7-year-old daughter, Junie. Every weekday followed the same exhausting routine. Rowan woke before sunrise, packed Junie's lunch, braided her curly chestnut hair after watching countless online tutorials, cleaned their tiny apartment, and rushed toward the daycare before starting another 10-hour shift repairing heating and cooling systems. Life had not been gentle to Rowan. 3 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a sudden illness that stole her from their family before anyone truly accepted what was happening. The medical bills had swallowed every dollar they had saved. Their comfortable home disappeared. Their dreams disappeared. Friends slowly drifted away. What remained was a father and daughter learning how to survive without the person who had always kept their world together. Every paycheck disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. Rent. Food. School supplies. Medicine. Transportation. Unexpected repairs. There was never enough left over for comfort, but Rowan had made himself one quiet promise. Junie would never grow up believing the world was cruel simply because life had been cruel to them. He wanted her to see kindness wherever it existed, even if they had very little themselves. That morning Junie tugged gently on his hand and smiled. She loved their Friday tradition. One hot chocolate. One plain coffee. Shared together before school. It wasn't expensive, but even that small tradition required Rowan to count every dollar inside his worn leather wallet before opening the cafe door. Inside, warm light reflected against polished wood tables while the smell of fresh pastries floated through the air. Office workers filled most of the seats. Students typed on laptops. A few elderly couples quietly enjoyed breakfast together. Near the counter stood a woman dressed in a simple navy coat. Nothing about her appearance screamed wealth. Her hair was tied neatly behind her head. She carried no designer handbag, wore almost no jewelry, and patiently waited while the cashier attempted her payment again. The machine beeped. Payment declined. The cashier apologized politely before asking if she wanted to try another card. She did. Declined again. A third attempt. Another decline. The people waiting behind her shifted impatiently. Someone sighed loudly. Another customer muttered that some people should check their accounts before ordering. The woman's face remained calm, but her eyes revealed something else. Embarrassment. Not anger. Not entitlement. Just quiet embarrassment. She reached into her purse searching for cash before realizing she had none. She softly apologized and asked the cashier to cancel the order. Before another word could be spoken, Rowan quietly stepped forward. He placed a few folded bills onto the counter. He smiled. He simply said that everyone deserved to enjoy their morning coffee. The woman immediately insisted she could not accept charity. Rowan gently shook his head. It wasn't charity. It was simply one person helping another. He explained that someday someone else might need her kindness instead. She looked at him with genuine surprise. People rarely help strangers anymore. especially strangers who appeared perfectly capable of paying for themselves. She thanked him sincerely. Junie smiled up at the woman and wished her a wonderful day before skipping toward their table with her hot chocolate. The woman watched the little girl laugh as Rowan carefully stirred whipped cream into her drink before taking his own untouched coffee. She noticed something many people would miss. Rowan never bought breakfast for himself. Only for his daughter. He quietly pretended he wasn't hungry. She left without another word. Rowan never even learned her name. For him, the moment ended the instant she walked away. He finished his coffee, kissed Junie on the forehead, dropped her at daycare, and spent the next 10 hours crawling through dusty basements repairing broken air conditioning systems while thinking only about making enough overtime to cover next month's rent. Meanwhile, the woman whose coffee he had purchased stepped into the back entrance of a 48-story glass skyscraper. Employees immediately stood straighter. Executives hurried toward elevators. Security greeted her with visible respect. Her name was Celine Armitage. Founder. Chairwoman. Chief Executive Officer. One of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. Her technology company employed over 60,000 people across several continents. The declined cards had nothing to do with money. Earlier that morning the company's cybersecurity department had temporarily frozen every executive account after detecting suspicious international transactions during a system upgrade. Her personal assistant had spent the entire morning trying to reach her while Celine enjoyed walking alone through the city without security whenever possible. She preferred seeing people as they truly were. That morning she had seen something she hadn't expected. A struggling father who possessed more generosity than many millionaires she knew. The image stayed with her throughout the day. She couldn't stop thinking about it. Late that afternoon she instructed her executive assistant to identify the man from nearby security cameras. Normally she never asked employees to investigate private citizens. This felt different. Not because she wished to reward him. Because she genuinely wanted to understand someone capable of such quiet kindness. Within 48 hours a simple report landed on her desk. Rowan Mercer. Widower. HVAC technician. Excellent employment record. No criminal history. No debts beyond medical expenses. Raises declined twice because accepting overtime instead helped coworkers keep their jobs. Volunteer youth baseball coach every Saturday. Neighbors consistently described him as dependable. The report ended with one handwritten note from the investigator. Good people like this are becoming rare. Celine closed the file slowly. She understood success. She understood business. She understood negotiations worth billions. Yet somehow she felt humbled by a man who owned almost nothing. Weeks passed. Summer slowly approached. Life continued exactly as Rowan expected. Bills arrived. Repairs never stopped. Junie lost another baby tooth. The landlord hinted another rent increase might come before winter. Nothing suggested fate had quietly begun rearranging his future. One scorching afternoon Rowan received an emergency repair request at a large office tower downtown. The building's executive conference center had lost climate control only hours before an important international meeting. His supervisor personally assigned him the job. When Rowan arrived, security escorted him directly to the executive floor. Everything gleamed. Glass walls. Original artwork. Fresh flowers. Elegant silence. It felt like another world. As he repaired the malfunctioning equipment above the conference room ceiling, he overheard voices discussing billion-dollar partnerships. He finished faster than expected. While packing his tools, someone called his name. He turned. Standing nearby was the same woman from the coffee shop. She smiled warmly. This time she introduced herself. Celine. Rowan recognized her immediately but assumed she worked somewhere inside the building. He apologized for not recognizing her sooner. She laughed gently. There was nothing to apologize for. She thanked him again for the coffee. He brushed it aside. To him it had never been important. She asked if he had a few minutes after work. Reluctantly, he agreed. They met downstairs in the company cafe. This time Celine insisted on buying the drinks. She finally explained who she was. Rowan nearly dropped his cup. He thought she was joking. Then he noticed employees greeting her with unmistakable respect. Everything suddenly made sense. The security. The executives. The private elevators. He felt embarrassed. Not because he had helped her. Because he worried she believed he had expected something in return. She quickly assured him that his kindness had meant so much precisely because he had expected absolutely nothing. They spoke for nearly an hour. Not about business. About grief. About children. About loneliness. About responsibility. Celine confessed that despite building one of the world's fastest-growing companies, she often returned each evening to an empty penthouse overlooking a city that never truly knew her. Money had purchased comfort. It had never purchased genuine connection. Rowan admitted he often felt invisible. He spent every waking hour trying to become both mother and father for Junie. Some days he succeeded. Some days he barely held himself together. For the first time in years, both of them felt completely understood. Over the following months Celine occasionally visited Rowan's neighborhood coffee shop. Never with bodyguards. Never with cameras. Sometimes Junie joined them after school. She adored listening to Celine describe inventions, space exploration, and robots that could help elderly people remain independent. Celine admired Junie's curiosity. Rowan admired how naturally Celine treated everyone around her regardless of wealth or status. One rainy afternoon Celine visited Rowan's apartment for the first time. She noticed patched furniture. Carefully repaired toys. Family photographs lovingly preserved. Everything reflected sacrifice rather than poverty. Junie proudly showed her a handwritten list taped beside her bed. My daddy's superpowers. Working hard. Fixing everything. Making pancakes. Giving the biggest hugs. Never giving up. Celine quietly excused herself for a moment because tears suddenly blurred her vision. That little list revealed more about true success than any financial statement she had ever reviewed. Several weeks later Rowan unexpectedly received an invitation to interview for a newly created facilities management position overseeing sustainability projects across Celine's corporate campuses. The salary nearly tripled his current income. Benefits included excellent healthcare, flexible hours, educational assistance, and enough stability to finally breathe again. Rowan hesitated. He refused to accept charity. Celine understood immediately. She made one thing perfectly clear. The position existed because she needed someone whose character could never be questioned. Technical skills could be taught. Integrity could not. After several interviews conducted entirely by independent executives, Rowan earned the position honestly. No shortcuts. No favoritism. Only trust. His life slowly transformed. He moved Junie into a modest but comfortable home with a small backyard. He attended school events without worrying about missing rent. He slept through entire nights without calculating unpaid bills in his head. Yet despite every improvement, he remained exactly the same man who had once purchased coffee for a stranger. He greeted janitors before executives. He learned employees' names. He treated every person with equal respect. Months later Celine anonymously launched a company initiative called the Morning Cup Program, allowing employees to quietly pay for coffee or breakfast for strangers who found themselves unable to afford it. Thousands of small acts of kindness spread across cities. No publicity campaign. No advertisements. Only generosity passed from one person to another. It all began because one single father refused to let a stranger feel ashamed over a declined bank card. Years later, journalists often asked Celine about the most important investment she had ever made. Many expected her to mention technology, artificial intelligence, international expansion. Instead, she always smiled before answering that the greatest return on investment came from believing good people still existed. She never mentioned Rowan's name. She protected his privacy. But she carried that memory everywhere. Because wealth had taught her how to build companies. Kindness had taught her how to build hope. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that compassion still exists, leave a comment telling us what act of kindness has stayed with you forever, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts for more emotional stories that celebrate humanity. Special request * before this story ends, please comment with the words, "Kindness always returns," if you believe even the smallest good deed can change someone's life forever. On another peaceful Friday morning, nearly 2 years after that unforgettable coffee shop encounter, Rowan and Junie walked through the same cafe doors. The same cashier smiled. The same comforting aroma filled the room. This time, another elderly customer discovered she had forgotten her wallet. Before anyone else could react, Junie quietly reached into the little allowance purse she carried and placed enough money on the counter. She looked up at her father with the same warm smile he had once given a stranger. Rowan realized something beautiful in that moment. Children do not simply listen to what adults say. They become what adults repeatedly do. As the old woman thanked her with tears in her eyes, Rowan looked toward the window where sunlight streamed across the cafe floor exactly as it had years before. Life had not rewarded him because he helped a billionaire. Life had rewarded him because he chose kindness before he knew who needed it. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The people standing in front of us may be wealthy or struggling, famous or forgotten, powerful or ordinary. We almost never know the battles they carry or the blessings they hide. But every act of compassion plants a seed whose harvest we may never see. Sometimes the smallest cup of coffee becomes the beginning of the biggest miracle. And somewhere beyond what our eyes can see, kindness is always finding its way back home.